We are recording. We are ready.
So here we are for Nerd Night presents a symbolic look at Logan's Run, starting with modern trailers' take on Logan's Run, since old trailers are very different. Here we go.
You know, Logan, you wonder a lot. Too much for a Sandman.
Enter the carousel. This is the time of renewal.
I've never killed anyone in my life. Sandmen terminate runners.
Be strong, and you will be renewed. Do you identify this word, sanctuary?
Is this good? Is this what you want?
I never heard of a Sandman running, ever.
Now it's different. Believe me.
You are terminated, runner.
Isaac, stop! You can live! This isn't the truth. This is a lie!
Isn't that what you do? Kill?
Killed? Why do you use that word?
Okay, so that is Logan's Run. So, to quote from the beginning of the movie, sometime in the 23rd century, the survivors of war, overpopulation and pollution, are living in a great domed city, sealed away from the forgotten world outside. Here, in an ecologically balanced world, mankind lives solely for pleasure. Freed by the serval mechanisms which provides everything, there's just one catch. Life must end at 30 unless reborn. Fiery ritual of carousel. Now, this concept, when you are 30, they execute you to protect the balance of your environment, is just insane, right? Unless you win at the game of carousel and are renewed, you're dead at 30. The clincher is no one really renews. Quote Francis 7. He keeps everything in perfect balance. Everything. One is terminated, one is born. Simple, perfect, logical. Do you have a better system? The main character is a man named Logan. He's a Sandman, an enforcer who hunts down and terminates people who try to escape. These escapees are called runners. He does this until the city's computer informs him that there are 1,053 missing runners. So it sends him on a suicide mission to find where these runners came, where they went to. A place called Sanctuary. And there are severe problems with this. There are 1,000 people missing. There are issues within the computer itself. It does things to Logan to turn him into a runner, but it has no guarantee, gives him no guarantee that should he succeed, will he get his time back. Now he's forced to run and must decide whether to truly run or stay loyal to the computer and the city, and whether or not to find out if it will actually give back his time. So in this next clip here, we're actually going to see that coming up right now. Now this is the scene where Logan comes in after terminating a runner, right? You're going to notice some interesting things in this scene. I'll let him come forward. You're going to see those clocks on the left, in the back. Gold, green, red. They represent the different ages provided within the life clock that's on everyone's hand. Okay? This is going to be a red pill moment, if you will.
Identify. Logan 5. Do you identify this object?
Negative. Question, what is it?
That is the name of the object, Ankh. Do you identify this word, sanctuary?
Negative.
Sanctuary is a pre-catastrophe code word used for a place of immunity.
I don't understand.
The object Ankh has been identified with the code word sanctuary. The object and the word both relate to runners who have not been accounted for.
No one understands this.
Unaccounted runners 1056. You may state your question.
1,056 unaccounted for?
The number is correct.
It's impossible. Question, maybe they weren't all running. Maybe most of them reached life renewal on Carousel. Question, nobody reached renewal? But everybody believes that some...
The question has been answered, Logan 5.
You mean nobody's ever been renewed?
The question has been answered. You are authorized to penetrate city seals and search outside the dome.
The seal? Question, what seal? Outside? Well, there's nothing outside.
You will find sanctuary and destroy.
Question. What if I need help from another Sandman?
Negative. You will begin assignment by becoming a runner seeking sanctuary.
Question. I'm only Red 6. Well, how can I pretend that I'm approaching Lasting?
Identify.
Question. My life clock.
Retrogram complete. Proceed 03303.
But am I still Red 6? But I had 4 more years. I will get them back, won't I?
You will take the object Ankh with you for identification.
Question. Do I get my 4 years back?
So, at this point, he's being sent on essentially a suicide mission for a system that doesn't seem to work anymore. There's problems with the computer that you see in the movie. There's a whole group of people who are out there in an area called Cathedral, called Cubs. They're wild. They're insane. And yet they're not dealt with when the Sandmen could easily eliminate them. The Sandmen hunt down runners. Sandmen who take down runners and have special weaponry could easily take down genetically altered maniacs. The society of Logan's Run is genetically engineered. They have no parents. They understand nothing to do with the concept of society, family. They have no ideas of commerce, no ideas of any religion outside of the idea that through Carousel, maybe they'll renew, which is why Logan responds so drastically to his red pill life clock moment that no one renews, that the computer is that honest about it.
Oh, I gotta jump in here because that's crazy. You mentioned red pill life or red pill, the red pill modern symbolism, and like, what's the deal with the Ankh? That's like Logan's Run symbolism. Same thing. It's like they might have called it the red pill if they were if this happened today, but no, it's the Ankh. What is the deal with the Ankh? Like you and I, we look at this and it's like Ankh is sort of symbolizes the people who are unaccounted for. It's like we don't understand what that is. But we all understand what the red pill is, and these people would be like, red pill? What are you guys talking about? Are you guys a bunch of hypochondriacs? So it's like these symbols are like deeply saturated with context.
If I'm not mistaken, the Ankh actually symbolizes divinity and rebirth.
Yes, in general, I think yes. Or immortality. I've heard it's been symbolized as immortality as well.
And that fits in with the idea of renewal, except the idea, see now, Carousel, which has the symbol, the life clock on Logan's hand, is actually just like a round crystal that can glow, right? And then when it approaches last day, it starts blinking. It goes black and red, black and red. And they have these large, you probably saw it in the trailer, the large crystal. That's sort of like almost the closest thing to their symbol of renewal, but then they actually bring in an actual symbol of divinity and renewal from the ancient world. Except that the interesting thing is the Ankh is a symbol that gets you through the underground to Sanctuary, because there's a whole underground of people who aren't buying it. They're not buying the idea that at 30 they'll go to Carousel, and if they're lucky, they'll renew. Right? It's very interesting too. It's very interesting too because this movie came out in 1976. The book was written in 67. And there were all sorts of themes. An interesting thing too is, see, these people who they don't know family, they don't know who their donors are, their parents, and they're not supposed to. If you ask, it's odd. And hedonism is the norm. You can have like a sex partner teleported right to your room. The recreations are all over the city. Every need of the population is available and automated. The city is run by the computer, and the Sandmen, they're the enforcers. And there's a lot of symbolism, right? Taking the red pill or the flashing life clock moment.
That's scary. Like teleported to your. Why can't she just walk? She has to be teleported.
It's something they did specifically for the movie to show that they had a technological level that they could somehow access each other's room over short distances very easily. It's very interesting. There's many different pieces of symbolism that happen within the movie, right? There's this beautiful city. Like the city interiors, they're like the most modern that you could find in the 1970s that they picked, and they like stylized them more, right? And yet, once they break through, once they escape, and ironically, you know where they escape through? They escape through the Love Shop, which is a place filled with all sorts of airborne aerosol drugs and weird lights, and it's orgy. It's a place of orgy. And you have to go through the orgy, through the decadence, literally to escape. There's actually a passage that only the underground knows about. And once you get out there, it's just this industrial stairwell going down underneath the city, right? It's this disgusting, grimy, rusty, metallic underground, right? And there's water everywhere.
Whoa! And this is after you go through the orgy. So like you have to confront the orgy, and you have to say no, I don't want that. Only to be rewarded with this like dingy, dark, dank basement.
Well, it's interesting because they escape into the real, right? I mean, again, here's another analogy that the Matrix uses, right? Welcome to the desert of the real, right? Everybody remembers that moment? And this,
Oh,
I like
that's
that.
brutal.
When they go through the orgy, the interesting thing too is if you're in that red room it was in the trailer, that weird red room with the weird people. They're literally almost don't even get to the hallway at the back. The people in the orgy grab them and try to like seduce them into what they're doing.
Oh, so it's like you're not even allowed to leave.
Yeah, and they've got drugs, especially in the book. They got drugs for everything, and they've actually created drugs that are only addictive by personality, not by chemical. The designer drugs are out of control, and of course the book has a heavier emphasis on they had to balance out the world for resources and kill everyone. People die at 21, and it was because they were running on the, of course, outdated, now proven incorrect idea of the unstoppable population bomb. But it's very interesting too, because once they get down there is this interesting moment because there's a special relationship between this one girl, Jessica 6, and Logan. And he's actually using her to accomplish his mission, but he's conflicted because he doesn't know if he's even going to get to live. And at one point, they actually get out there, meet the underground, convince the underground to let a Sandman go because he's the enemy as a runner. Then he actually alerts the other Sandman. The Sandman crashed the party, kill a bunch of people, but suddenly Logan's like, this isn't Sanctuary. He doesn't realize he just unleashed the Sandman early. So what he does with his tracker, so what he does is, because he just called them, they just show up. He saves Jessica, who's about to be killed, and at that point it's all in. It's all in. And they actually have to go through this long tunnel, and they're going through the tunnel, they're going through the cave. And what they encounter is the food processing system. And the food processing system is a cyborg named Box, who is unstable. It's very interesting because there's so many interesting things about Box. He basically tells them, Box is interesting because in his spare time, this cyborg is creating ice sculptures, and it's an ice cave. And they get out, now they're completely out of their society. They actually have to take off their soaking wet clothes because there's there's water and whatnot all over the tunnels, and they put on animal skins. They follow Box around, and he tells them about his job, which is basically processing food. And then he says, and he goes, now I'm ready, because he's going to process them. And it's another element of the system breaking down. It wasn't my idea, it was that website. Also, the website again, aeolus13umbra.com. He's talking about how the system's breaking down. And Box, as a cyborg, he has problems perfectly understanding his program. He's supposed to preserve food from the sea, plankton, sea greens, right? Well, apparently the sea kind of died, sort of, just a little bit, and that stopped coming. Or something went wrong with the city systems that were collecting it, and then the runners showed up. So he assumed the runners were food and started freezing them. And so you can see how even the life-giving elements of this society, they're actually turned to killing. Right? It's interesting because everybody inside this city is like, it's complete hedonism, no family, no greater meaning than your own pleasure and whatever you enjoy and maybe the people you like. That's it.
Yeah, it reminds me of
purpose.
Nietzsche's Dionysian.
Yes, you have all this going on, and it's interesting because they have to. It's kind of an interesting dichotomy because they have to get past Box. And then something amazing happens. I'll play that scene here, coming right up here. I'll go back to here. I'll start with the Ankh. And it'll play the next video here. This is them escaping the cave from Box.
So this is after they've gone through the orgy.
They've actually. Oh no, this this is well after the orgy. There's the orgy, then there's the industrial
There's
bottom of the
rising
city.
sun.
Then they have to go through the underground, and they escape through the tunnel pipes to Box in his ice cave, where he's processing the food. This is after Box. So they've actually, this is the first thing they encounter when they leave the last vestiges of the city behind.
Do you think the rising sun here is symbolic? Because one thing
yes.
like about many ancient cultures is their sun worship, and particularly the sun rising.
Well, it's very interesting because this scene really hit me because it makes me think about what's going on in our society right now, and there's so many of us who just want to get out.
Actually, John, you are 100% correct. Actually, in Egyptian
really?
mythology, in
I don't know much,
Egyptian mythology, the sun rising is actually supposed to be Ra actually coming back to life, because whenever the sun goes down at night, that's
Oh my
Ra dying,
word.
and he actually goes into the underworld.
That's
which
like
they had to do to
that-
leave
that's
to
it's
basically get back up.
so
Yeah.
concomitant. Like I'm going to use some $10 words here. Concomitant resurrection and sunlight, sun rising.
And
So
actually,
maybe to symbolize that resurrection. Holy
actually,
frickin'! Oh, my brain just like. Oh, sorry.
actually, now that I think about that, Box trying to eat them could be a reference to the giant serpent. I want to say Sekhmet
Yes,
that was trying
yes,
to eat Ra.
that's right.
Well, I believe also.
So the sun rising is telling Logan that, hey, dude, you are Raw. That's you.
Well, isn't it also an
You
element
resurrected.
in certain
Oh,
versions
it
of
just
hell?
did a mind jump.
The freezing isn't the freezing an element of some versions of hell?
In Dante's Inferno, the lowest levels of hell reserved for betrayers and mutineers is actually a frozen lake.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I believe the
Yep.
underworld in Greek mythology is also cold. The Sumerians called it the house of dust and darkness. Right?
Man, that is
Well, that's only because of the
wild.
fact that Hades can't find a good housekeeper.
Well, there's that too. I don't know who the Sumerian version is.
There might be some logic to that.
But I mean, it's interesting too.
Consuela
When
doesn't like working on there.
it's interesting too because you have these different symbols of resurrection, and you also have the idea that these people are coming out into the world for the first time. Like this is supposed to happen in the 23rd century, so it's like 300 years after the apocalyptic war.
It's almost as if they they took a red pill and then the novelty of new information was nice, and then they realize this robot's trying to kill them and they can't escape, and so they're in the black pill. They're sort of swirling down the drain, getting caught. They're caught in the gravity well of the black pill, but then they manage to get out. They resurrect. There's like new life. They died and became resurrected again. That's like, I want to say it's like a white pill where the old self has died away and the new self is about to be born.
Well, I gotta say,
Sort of like metamorphosis, but I don't know if that's relevant.
Well, I think also if we were going to look at it now, considering that a lot of things that are happening now had a lot of the beginnings of a lot of the craziness in society was really going on in the 60s and 50s and 70s. You could also see this as sort of like by escaping, they're reestablishing the natural order. Right? Because when they come out, there is some Adam and Eve imagery after this. And then they find satisfaction in pair bonding, the two of them. The two of them actually pair bond, and they assume the natural roles of the male being the protector and the female being the comforter, even though he comforts her. And it's interesting because he has the whole hero thing going on. He's the character who's the reluctant hero, and he does a lot of the action. But without her, he wouldn't have made it out of the city. Because the Jessica character has all the connections to the underground, and she has her own Ankh. They actually have a scene where he loses the Ankh he had, and then they use hers, right? Otherwise, they would never even gotten out of the tunnels. So let's play the rest of this here.
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know. Whatever it is, it's warm.
We must be outside.
stop this for a second here. This guy is something we gotta talk about here. This guy right here. This is the guy quoted. His character Francis Seven. He was Logan's partner in Hunting Down Runners. He's the other Sandman, and he won't give up on the system no matter what. He refuses to, and he literally. There's a point where he will not give up the system no matter what. Like in the trailer.
The archetypal blue pill.
Well, on the trailer too, you can see him. He's up on a balcony of an old building with a gun to Jessica's head. He goes, "Is this what you want?" And you can see like the ruined buildings, right? Because it's very interesting. Francis said he just can't let go of the system, even when he dies. He kind of lets go when he dies, and he notices something. There's something that happens when they get outside the city. The light clocks turn off, and they're clear. They're just clear crystal. Right? And like the last thing he says, like actually Logan's holding him and he dies. He looks at it, he goes, "Hey, you're renewed." But getting back, actually, speaking of which, there's stuff that is very interesting that comes up. They do encounter Washington, D.C. They literally encounter Washington, D.C. They actually wind up there, and it's completely overgrown because it's been like 250 years. And they only find one survivor outside. Played by Peter Ustinov brilliantly. It's this really old guy who's just talking about his cats and quoting T.S. Eliot's cat poems, and he's saying he's hanging out in the Library of Congress or something, and he's just telling them about how cats have 3 names and all this stuff, and it's very it's kind of interesting. They only find one guy out there. The guy's like 80 or 90 years old. They find this weird cat guy, right? They find this weird cat guy, and I don't know if you're going to see it here. Oh, right here. We go to, then I'll play the video again, so show you what happens next. It's kind of interesting because they're going to have like a, sort of like a counter response of how Francis sees things, right? So they go off in there, and they're like, okay, we're in the woods, right? Now, his response is completely different than theirs.
Came off like horror, whereas the other ones were hope.
Exactly. He comes off like horror instead of hope, right? Because he won't, even in death, he's still part of the system. He kind of maybe gets it, but he doesn't. Like, he's just, because what happens to Francis, he can't stop. He continues to hunt them. And in the coming scenes, you see more Adam and Eve imagery where they kind of find an area that's a bit more garden-like, a little less brushy, and there's a pool, and they go in the pool and they swim. They swim butt naked and they make love. And the interesting thing is when they make love, it's like this dichotomy. They're not doing it for pleasure. They're doing it because they've grown to love each other. They've come to depend on each other. Nietzsche talked about how people will make love with no joy.
Oh, yeah.
Coming to last man, making love with
Yeah,
no joy. They make love
No joy.
with complete joy.
That's
They make
crazy.
love with complete joy.
Honestly, that just reminds me of the picture of the naval officer who comes back home from World War II and he kisses his lady, dips her. Like, whenever you have joy, you embrace someone, regardless of how you embrace them.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So I just put up the Logan's Run 1970s poster there. Great stylized stuff. Very intriguing. Now I have to hunt that down. So to go forward with giving as few spoilers as possible, we've talked about how, once they escape the cave, once they escape their hedonistic society, there's this trend where Logan and Jessica start to adopt traditional, just automatically, they kind of return to the natural norm of the universe, the natural norm of men and women. And there is an interesting moment that will be coming up, because what happens is through the Catman, they relearn what it is to be family, because they come from a society with no family, no families, no nothing. You live on your own. You're bred, you're raised by the city, and you are on your own the whole time. And in some ways, with the current moments and current situations going on right now with certain groups that are wreaking havoc in the United States and elsewhere, they seem to want a familyless society. And in a way, it's kind of like Logan's is a hedonistic society. Everything's taken care of for you. It's a society with no families, right? And in a way, it's a utopia. And interestingly enough, utopia means nowhere. Right? That's why it was interesting too, because they have this utopia.
Are you
right?
serious? Like utopia means nowhere?
It actually means nowhere. It's like revelation. Revelation. The apocalypse really means revelation. Things will be revealed, and the definition of utopia is nowhere, right? Like it says on the poster, "Welcome to the 23rd century, the perfect world of total pleasure. There's just one catch." Right? A place where all needs to be provided for you, and hedonism is pursuit or goal of society. They're keeping the populace. They keep the populace pacified with distractions like sex and drugs and a highly automated society.
Yeah, well, isn't everybody fighting? Isn't that what everyone's fighting for? This utopia, like endless sex and pleasure and everything you want, and all the food you can eat. Well, so what we're fighting for is we're fighting for the state of going nowhere.
Well,
that's sad.
Well, the interesting thing too is the question too is, well, what century like that?
Right? I honestly, I'm gonna say that it's not that we're fighting for a utopia, much less that we're just fighting for our personal morals and how it's going to be difficult for me to actually put to words. We're basically fighting to maintain our principles, and while others are fighting to actually change said principles because they feel like they've been getting or given a bad rep.
Yeah, that's a locus of control, but that's another topic.
Well, the other thing too is there are different groups. I'm just saying that what is created in Logan's Run seems to be the goal of a lot of socialists / Marxists. It's what they think they're going to get, and that ain't happened yet. But then it's showing that if you get this utopia, there will be a lack of meaning, right? It's a very interesting thing because it goes from the pursuit of pleasure to extreme attempts at survival. There's people in the story who actually try to hide in Cathedral with the Cubs, and the Cubs just slaughter them. Right?
I remember zoom. Go ahead, Marty.
I remember hearing someone say this a while back. He said, humanity will never be able to attain peace because humanity would get too bored.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
The restlessness, right?
And I kind of want to hone in on Marxism there. You brought up Marxism there.
Oh, Marty disappeared.
He'll be back.
You
kind of brought up.
Sandman got you, Marty.
Yes.
No, that was me. I accidentally clicked that instead of mute.
Who was it this time? Censor, cancel culture. I want to hone in on your comment about Marxism because I think the reason why is because, at least what I understand from the Marxists I've talked to, they presuppose that people are basically good. We just got to get rid of religion. We get rid of religion, everyone's going to be good. But I think the problem is religion is complex. Religion has become kind of a necessary system that filled in, like, you can reason from this from either any perspective, but it's filled a role that has been deemed and observed to be necessary. I think even Thomas Hobbes wrote about this in the Leviathan, where he argued that men need something far greater than themselves to be afraid of. Now, that's controversial right there, especially if you are a religious person. But the fact remains that there's a lot more to being a human and existing in a universe that is, for all intents and purposes, meaningless and directionless, than just waking up in the morning and filling your stomach with food. There's a lot more to it. It's very complex. Our brains really grapple with this existential dread we have. We can distract ourselves from that for a time with pleasure, and that might actually be another archetypal aspect of Logan's Run. The whole point of the pleasure in the orgies is to distract people from existential dread, from the problem of the great human disease that Nietzsche wrote about, which is nihilism, as opposed to wrestling with it, grappling with it, trying to understand how to respond to it in a way that, probably leads to the least entropy, or maybe that's a bad argument to make. Maybe not the least, like entropy being like chaos, just a fancy word for chaos. But a little bit of chaos can also lead to new things. So, I mean, if you like what they did by escaping the system, that's a form of chaos as well. They left, they got through the orgy, they wrestled, and they discovered some very novel wisdom about nature, about the universe that they'd never seen before. And that's good. That's great. So with the Marxist who believes that, presupposes that mankind is basically good, that he will naturally have a natural tendency towards doing good things. And I think we don't actually have any strong and compelling evidence of that. I don't think we have any strong and compelling evidence. We have all kinds of suggestion that human beings are wicked and evil, especially if you want to appeal to the Tutsis and the Hutu in Africa, who are like constantly murdering each other even after Christianity was brought to them.
Oh, please, evangelists think that.
Yeah. The thing is, if we can say that is because humans are intrinsically evil, but I would say that that's a very difficult problem, a very difficult experiment or scientific thing to control for. Are humans naturally evil? Are humans naturally good? We don't have very much evidence on either, really, is that what I would argue. So the Marxist automatically kind of presupposes that people are basically good, and we implement Marxist plans. At the very least, did I just say Barry? Yeah, the very least. At the very least, we are not ready. We are not ready for what Marxists have come to a conclusion about, what they have written down on paper, what they decide is going to be best. I would say we are just not ready for that. Us featherless bipeds, we still have too much of this. We still have too much of a reptilian brain in ourselves. And if you want to appeal to evolution, that doesn't happen overnight. The modern human brain is 10,000 years old. I would argue that before we're ready for anything like revolutionarily new, it might take another 10,000 years yet. So that is my rant.
Well, it's very interesting too, because you see, there's actually a bunch of imagery going on in here, right? For example,
What was that?
when they're relearning what a family is for the first time, beloved husband, beloved wife, beloved daughter, they find that out from tombstones, beloved child. They're like, wow, like they're actually like the idea, like in their society, the idea of having children naturally is repulsive to them. And it's also interesting because they encounter the idea of burying your dead versus people being dissolved. And we don't even know, as the one website pointed out, we don't even know what they do with the dead people from Carousel, right? This is the era when they had movies like Soylent Green come out, where they're eating people, right? People have become the food supply. Like we
If I
don't
may.
know what the deal is, right?
Yes,
If
you
I may.
may.
If you,
Theory.
Permission granted.
Theory. What if Box processed the dead? Like that was like he was an older model, so maybe they got rid of him, and that's why he lives near the end of the exit. Like kind of dumped him out there. But what if they have a robot like Box that actually dissolves the people by processing them to make a resource that they use for like food production or something like that?
Yeah, that would make sense.
that is highly
It's like
possible.
they wouldn't want to call it cannibalism because, you know, like Logan said, why did you use the word?
Oh no,
kill?
not even cannibalism. I'm saying like more like a fertilizer.
Yeah, fertilizer, sure. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too is if you look at there was this great picture I saw of Box with them, and let's see if I can find it again. Here we go. Here's the picture of them
All
with
right.
Box.
Ready when you got it.
Oh crap!
Got it, buddy.
Really stupid web page. Okay, so they got all these images. Oh, here we go.
Don't scare me like that. I thought your Discord crashed again.
No, nothing's crashing.
Nothing's crashing.
Okay.
You say that now.
You see that picture there?
There we go.
There's them in the bear skins that he has laid out there. So clearly Box decided to go out of his way to create something to keep the humans warm while he's preparing them. Because he thinks he's just fulfilling a service. And there's Box right there. He's kind of like...
You know, when we were discussing this offline, you said something that there's something symbolic about the bears. Oh, yeah, you said something about the fact they're wearing bearskins and they're in an ice-cold cave.
Well, they go into an ice-cold cave, and they were actually stuck in some water in the tunnels. So they have to take off the clothes from their society and put on, like, barbarian bearskin.
Oh.
The more interesting fact about that cave is actually if you go around that path that's just off to the left, you'll see Luke Skywalker hanging upside down while Wampa is chewing on a freaking dead corpse.
And that's some other interesting symbolism there. Maybe
that's
what happened to the
now you know what? We just like cross-pollinated two shows. I'm going to throw a third one in there, and that's Steins Gate. You know, for all those anime quantum mechanics fans out there.
Mad scientist, it's a kid.
You know, okay, here's something creepy here. You guys might see this picture here.
It's a bit on the meta side.
That's what they're wearing when they go to carousel, right? They have like no identity.
It's kind of that's a little bit misleading, or maybe it isn't misleading. I don't know, but my first thought was it's like that's KKK. They're sort of like mini pseudo Ku Klux Klan dudes.
No.
But that could be misleading because what you said makes more sense. You said what makes more sense. They have no identity.
Look at their masks. They're Canadian KKK. They are all goalies. They're all goalies.
I think that's kind of
their crazy idea of racial purity.
I shouldn't have said anything because I liked what you said. The original.
I think that was jumping the gun a bit with the idea that they look like KKK. If anything, that looks like burial garb. Like if you look at like
there's another
there was I think it was Japan actually has burial garb like that where they cover the whole body and they actually like crunch the body into like a small position and then they have the body being carried on a plate that's being held up by logs and there's 4 people holding it, kind of like, you know, you would a casket.
This might be stretching the metaphor, but I like that you made an appeal to Japanese culture there, because the other interesting thing, I'm going kind of back to the sun here, but also in Japanese culture that the part of it is understand is the divine masculine represents the sun casting light on one side of a mountain, and the divine feminine as the moonlight on the other side.
That's actually alchemical too.
By the way, I was reading the caption with this picture. It says they're lining up the close shot of last day, because last day is when they go to carousel. Candidates, last day candidates, togged out in shroud-like garments and death masks. So they're actually wearing death masks, which is very fascinating.
So there was death masks. But they didn't know that they were doing that, right? They're playing carousel. They think they're going to get resurrected while they're wearing these death masks, Which,
Yeah.
well,
I think the death mask is because of the fact that they know they're on their last day.
yeah.
So the death mask
Yeah.
is taken off because they are reborn.
Yes. The resurrection archetype. You have to die before you can become resurrected.
So
It says you.
There's this picture here. You can see what their quarters are like and how they're dressing. It's like they're, lounging, sort of very, evocative clothing, right?
Right.
Especially like the woman, like the full thigh and all that. They're going for like the super sensual, right? But there was another thing. I saw something here. Now here is what happens if you, there's sort of like a creepy image. It's having problems loading, of course. That's silly. Oh, here we go. Maybe I can get a picture. There we go. Here we go. And, that is sucky. Come on. That is dumb. Okay, I'm going to have to try and increase the size on this. There we go. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Let's see here. No.
Did I just see them frozen in carbonite?
Kind of. I'm trying to find it. I had to actually greatly
Logan's
increase.
Millennium Falcon run.
He wasn't putting on the Millennium Falcon. What the hell is an aluminum Falcon anyway?
Did I say aluminum Falcon? I thought I said Millennium
No.
Falcon.
No, but given how much of a piece of junk that ship was.
It's just like the fast ferries in the Pacific Northwest. It's like, yeah, we can make ferries out of aluminum. We know how to weld aluminum. It's like, apparently, welding aluminum is very hard. So, long story short, they all sunk. I think
Well, a lot of
you guys
our
can see
vehicles
this or
and stuff like
not.
that are actually their chassis are made of aluminum, so that's lightweight.
Yes. Yeah, that would make sense. I think you have to use a lot of no, not electricity. It's just a friend of mine who has experienced welding aluminum
you're right.
said you have to be. It's not the same as welding iron or steel. It's just
It's called arc welding.
Nice arc welding.
So yes, electricity.
I'm a bit out of my element here. I have a high school metalworking under my belt. That's about it.
Arc welding uses electricity and basically creates basically it's like a lightning bolt.
Yeah, no,
like
I
a
remember.
small
That's
lightning
right.
bolt.
Yeah.
Can you guys see
I
that?
remember having this conversation before. Yeah. Sorry, we're getting a little distracted here with. It's
Can
not
you guys see
surprising for
that?
this channel. Yes. So those are the frozen quote unquote food. The robots have their food anyway.
Frozen
what
food.
happens- This is another thing to consider in this society. If you rebel and seek sanctuary, this is what Logan and Jessica are the first ones to get through, right? So
They were the first ones to get through.
Nobody got. They're the first. Well, the only one. Box is still there, right? So they're the only ones that got through back. This is what happens to the others. Right?
Well, that would explain why the whole
Yeah.
area was broken.
Compared to the Matrix, where the architect told Neo that he was like, "You're not special. You're like one of 100. You're like not the first one. You're like the 100th one."
Yeah.
It leads me to believe that they never left the Matrix, but it's kind of.
That's actually one big thing that people were theorizing.
Yeah. So there's this idea brought up on the website, though, that this is they're actually been feeding humans back to the city.
Yeah.
Right? These humans, these are just a few of them, right? There's 1,000 missing. So how many of the 1,000 have actually been repurposed into the food?
So
right?
Wait. Who said there's 1,000 missing? Who said that?
The computer said there's 1,056 people missing, right?
So the system is either way, the system's breaking down.
Well,
the system can't even keep
down.
track
The
of people.
computer is breaking down. The computer decides that the best way it can protect a secret that there's no renewal is to say nothing, and then just keep telling them you have to go find sanctuary, right? And then you have issues with they've never dealt with Cathedral, which means there are problems with the breeders, with the breeding apparatuses, right? And you've got this issue here with the food, right? You've got a lot of equipment that has not been maintained because it's all automated, right? So there's some crazy crap going on here, right? You could be if you change the movie, the issue could be, oh, here we go. Here's the, you can
Now,
kinda
here
see
actually
the
brings up a
pups.
question.
They're nuts.
But here brings up a question, and this is a very integral question. Unless they are using the humans as a source of some kind, whether it is food for the people or a resource to keep the robots operational. Unless that is the purpose, why the hell does a computer care whether people are missing? If they are not in the dome, who the hell cares?
You know, that's very interesting because, by the way, here's a creepy picture. Have you guys seen this picture or not? I couldn't enlarge it because Pinterest is stupid, but it looks like Box has just frozen two people in an embrace. Right?
Yeah, I do see it.
That's creepy. That's very creepy. I think they're on with the computer because the computer almost gets angry. Is that perhaps the computer's programming is going wrong? You know, like there's these ideas. Again, the guy on the website I mentioned, he's looking at possibilities that things are breaking down with their system, right? Because the computer really, like in a lot of ways, the computer just represents the system, right? Like a failed system, a system that's slowly falling down. So you could literally have, you could literally have that if they did an alternate version of the movie, that the system is breaking down and people are forced to run, okay? So, I mean, because inside the city, you've got everybody there. It seems nice at the giant freaking crystal thing that represents a life box. But I was thinking, just to wind down the recording here, there's a couple things I wanted to mention. There is a point where two guys are fighting over a flagstaff. A flagstaff becomes a part of a pitched battle between Francis and Logan. And the flagstaff is in that building of government, and it still has the American flag on it. So it's kind of interesting. They're actually fighting with, like, they're actually, and at one point they're fighting over the staff, right? Like, that's kind of an interesting symbol, because in the book it says that things start to go wrong with the overpopulation and what they call the small war and the massive youth protests. That's the first signs that things are going to go right down the toilet, right?
In the book, they call it the Little War.
Yeah, the Little War, and you got so it's like the Little War, the youth protests, and of course the youth protests are the culture war, right? So you got these guys fighting over the American flag in the movie, which I think is an interesting nod to that. That and the fact that you think about like inside, no marriage, no family, you're basically dissolved or blown up in carousel. Outside, you're actually buried. Outside, there were survivors who were still getting married. The only reason the old Catman isn't married, who knows if he even had a wife? Maybe he's just been a loner his entire life because he's just got cats. There's no one else around, So, it's kind of interesting. But I was thinking, too, we could close out a bit of the recording anyway with the original trailer. What do you think about that?
Yay.
And it would be like, witness how screwed things were, how things could be so screwed up in the 1970s. Ready? And then we can continue this discussion. How's that sound, John? Otherwise, the recording will go too long. John has disappeared. John, are you there? John, where are you, John? John!
Just imagine a world where you will hold your entire future in the palm of your hand, when a tiny glowing crystal will guide you through an existence in which each day is more wonderful than the last, where it will be possible for you to obtain the fulfillment of every fantasy, the satisfaction of every vanity, the absolute attainment of every wish.
Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer presents the Saul David production of Logan's Run. A fantastic journey through a world beyond imagination. Welcome to the 23rd century. The perfect world of total pleasure. Imagine a world in which you need never be alone. You touch a switch, turn a dial, and the perfect lover steps into your arms. Every pleasure is yours to experience.
Runner!
There's just one catch.
When the tiny crystal in the palm of your hand flashes its final message, Your time is up. Michael York is Logan.
Run, Logan!
Policeman in a perfect world.
No!
Trained to track down runners.
Run, Logan!
Until he is forced to run himself.
He's a runner.
Logan! I'm your friend, I understand. We all go crazy once in a while. But she's a runner, and it's over.
Overwhelming, am I not?
Box, an incredible being. More than human, more than machine. Diabolical guardian of the gateway to freedom. For Logan and the woman who loves him.
Terminator.
I've never seen a face like that before. That must be the look of being old.
MGM takes you into a new age of adventure in the first motion picture of the 23rd century. Logan's Run. It begins where imagination ends.